Blue Shirts hockey is officially back as Ranger Rookie Camp begins on Wednesday and will feature 2 games against the rookies from the Philadelphia Flyers. To celebrate the occasion, we are picking out 5 Ranger rookies to watch during the week-long camp.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1136 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So back behind the microphone here, back in the saddle, just in time for Ranger hockey to begin. We've got the rookie camp coming up. There's going to be some practices. There's going to be 2 games against the Philadelphia Flyers, the Ranger rookies taking on the Flyer rookies. Very much looking forward to that. It's obviously kind of the appetizer before the main course, because right after that, it's going to be preseason hockey. And then before you know it, we're all going to blink and we'll be underway. It's going to be opening night for the New York Rangers taking on the Pittsburgh Penguins. But I do want to go ahead and spend pretty much all of today's episode talking about this upcoming rookie camp that the Rangers are going to be starting tomorrow, Wednesday. So yeah, obviously a lot of exciting names primed to attend the camp here. And I want to go ahead and for those of you watching on YouTube, and if you're on audio only, don't worry, I'll talk you through it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here for you guys, assuming that I can remember how to do that. Yeah, there we go. So this is the camp, the players that are going to be attending this rookie camp for the New York Rangers. So again, I'll just kind of walk everybody through it quickly, give my thoughts on everybody attending, and then we're going to have 5 players specifically that I think we should all keep an eye on as Ranger fans heading into this camp, and specifically those 2 games against the Philadelphia Flyers rookies, because that's when you can really kind of increase your stock, so to speak, if you're a prospect in the Rangers system or a prospect in the Flyers system for that matter as well. These games certainly do matter for, players that are trying to make a positive impression on their respective team. But at forwards, you got 14 Ranger forwards that are going to be attending. You've got Nathan Aspinall. This is an ABC order, by the way. Other than that, it's in no special order here, just ABC order. Nathan Aspinall, Maxim Barbashev, Brett Berard, Raul Bouillard, Yaroslav Hemler, Isaac Dufort, Adam Edstrom, Rico Gredig, Ryder Korzak, Bryce McConnell-Barker, Brennan Othmann, Dylan Roobroeck, Adam Sikora, Callie Väisänen. Those are your rookies that are going to be partaking in this camp for the Rangers. And then at defenseman, those are the forwards, obviously. At defenseman, we got 8 defensemen: Carter Berger, Victor Mancini, Cale McCallum, Case McCarthy, Jake Murray, Matthew Robertson, Ryan Sedum, Noah Van Vliet. And then we've got 3 goalies as well: Talon Boyko, Dylan Garand, and Hugo Olas. And to give you guys kind of an idea of how this is going to work, like I said, it is basically exactly a week long. They're not doing something on every day, but I'll go ahead and pull up the picture that has the schedule that the Rangers are going to be going through, throughout this training camp here. So, like I said, begins on Wednesday, September 11th, 12:30 p.m. at the MSG Training Center. Just going to be a standard practice for the Ranger rookies. Same thing on Thursday, September 12th. Practice will begin at 10:30, also at the MSG Training Center. And then I think kind of the meat and potatoes of this whole thing, the 2 rookie games between the Ranger rookies and the Flyer rookies. There will be one on Friday, September 13th, against the Flyers, obviously, Rangers Flyers, at the PPL Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania. And then they'll run it back on Saturday, September 14th. That game will also be at the PPL Center in Allentown, Pennsylvania. That one, though, will start at 5 o'clock. No word yet on whether or not MSG or the Rangers in general, maybe on YouTube or whatever it might be, or even the Flyers, if any of these teams are going to be, streaming the event. I really hope that we're able to watch it in one way or another. I know that I'm not the only Ranger fan that's dying to see this team in action. And, granted, very few of these players, if any, will be out there on opening night for the Rangers. Can't really speak for the Flyers. But regardless, we're still getting a really good look at the Ranger rookies, at the Ranger prospects, at guys that maybe at some point this year will make an impact for the Rangers. And if not this year, certainly in the future. The Rangers have had some rookies they have participated, because this is, I think, now the third or fourth year, I think at least the fourth year in a row that the Rangers and Flyers are doing this. And there have been players on both sides that have participated in this and have gone on to become, regulars or semi-regulars in the NHL. It's really an exciting couple of days. So I am hoping that we're able to watch this in one way or another. Regardless, though, we will certainly talk about that after these two games happen as part of your schedule here on Locked On New York Rangers. But then after the Friday and Saturday games, the Rangers will be off on Sunday and Monday. And then on Tuesday, September 17th, you got one more practice at 11 a.m., once again back at the MSG Training Center. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to seeing how these rookies perform, which guys kind of distinguish themselves a little bit, which guys kind of climb the pecking order if the Rangers need to call up, or maybe not even necessarily for this year, but maybe there's like a really young rookie, somebody who's 19 or 20 years old who maybe went a little bit late in the draft and goes out there and kills it against the Flyers and has a great, couple of practices. It can really, really improve your stock and kind of set you up for success down the road. So definitely looking forward to this. Always a fun event on the calendar because, it's rookies. We all love prospects. We all love to know how they're doing. And again, it is the first taste of Ranger hockey. Not an official game. None of this counts in the standings or anything like that. But hey, it's Rangers, Flyers. Emotions always run high between those two teams in general. And in this case, you've got two rosters jam-packed with young players, rookie players, or guys that have little to no experience in the NHL. And they're all competing against each other to, again, set themselves up for success and hopefully a career in the NHL somewhere down the road here. Because not everybody playing in these games here on both sides is going to end up making it to the NHL, but some of them will, and some of them, this will be the first couple of steps that they take in accomplishing that goal. So definitely looking forward to these games. And like I said, fingers crossed. I got to look into it a little bit more as far as whether or not these games are going to be available to all of us to watch live. I hope that they are. If not, maybe some of the reporters will be there. They can keep us posted on what's going on. But again, I hope that we at least get a YouTube stream out of this whole thing, but we will see. So in just a minute, we're going to keep everything rolling and continue to talk about this Ranger rookie camp here. And more specifically, we're going to do a countdown. It's not really a ranking. They're in no specific order, but I got 5 Ranger rookies that are participating in this camp that I think we should all keep an eye on. Some you can probably predict. Others, maybe a little bit of a dark horse pick or two in there as well, but just players that I think are intriguing. And we will get to all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little bit different for you here today. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you will be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. Just visit FanDuel.com, download America's #1 sports book. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Huge shout out to the everydayers, as always, for sticking with this show throughout every single part of the the roller coaster that is Ranger hockey, and, every part of the in-season, the out-of-season, whatever it might be. It means a lot that you guys always stick with us here on Locked On New York Rangers. And for the everydayers, we'll keep everything rolling in some future episodes here. We're going to shift our attention to the Ranger defensemen as it pertains to our best and worst case scenarios. We're going through the entire Ranger roster, or at least the likely roster for opening night, looking at all the good things that could happen for every player and all the bad things that could happen for every player throughout this entire upcoming season. Adam Fox very likely going to be next there. We're also going to be doing a crossover episode with Locked On Philadelphia Flyers. Obviously, we're talking about this camp here, and I know they're excited about it as well. It's always a fun little event on the calendar every single offseason between the Rangers and Flyers here that they do this rookie camp. And like I said, a lot of opportunity for players on both sides to really distinguish themselves and stake their claim to, having a career in the NHL somewhere down the line. This is kind of the first steps, or some of the first steps toward accomplishing that goal. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into this. Again, it's not a ranking. It's just 5 players that I think we should all keep an eye on when it comes to this rookie camp. I'm not worried about the Flyers right now. We'll ask Locked On Flyers about that. We're going to focus in specifically on 5 Rangers to watch during this rookie camp here. 2 quick disclaimers, though. So the first one, I'm actually not going to include Brian Othmann. He is going to participate in this camp, but I feel like it's just too obvious. And we've talked about him a lot. Anybody, the everydayers, you guys know, I'm very bullish on Brian Othmann. I think he has a very good chance to make an impact on the Rangers this upcoming season. We've talked about him quite a bit in the offseason. Like I said, too obvious. We're going to leave Brian Othmann off of this list and give some other guys a little bit of the spotlight here, some of these other Ranger rookies. The other disclaimer is that this is not necessarily a list of guys that I think are going to smash through the glass ceiling and become all-stars for the Rangers this year. In some of these cases, I don't expect these players to even play for the Rangers this year. But again, these are 5 players that I think are intriguing and might be a lot of fun to watch during this camp. So with no further ado, we got the ground rules out of the way. My first pick for this Ranger rookie camp is going to be 23-year-old center and winger Adam Edstrom. Now, this name is familiar, obviously, because he debuted with the Rangers this past season. And by the way, I went through the Ranger roster for this camp here. Only 3 players have appeared with the Rangers. It would be Othmann, it would be Edstrom, and sort of, but not really, Dylan Garand, because he was up for a game last year as the backup, did not play. He backed up Louis Domingue for that game. But those are the only 3 players that have ever, I guess at least been on the bench for a New York Ranger regular season game. So, yeah, just those 3. But I wanted to throw Adam Edstrom in here. 6th-round pick by the Rangers in 2019. He went number 161 overall. Made his NHL debut last season, as we said. Played in 11 games with the Rangers. Had 2 goals. Was also a +2. Averaged 8 minutes and 25 seconds of ice time. Had 30 hits. Last year was also his 2nd season with the Wolfpack. He ended up with 11 goals, 5 assists, and 16 points, and was also a -4 with the Hartford Wolfpack. Edstrom, one of the reasons I wanted to include him here is because I think a lot of us, and I include myself in this, we tend to forget about him just a little bit. He was sort of the forgotten man at the end of last season. People forget, man, when Adam Edstrom came up, he's scoring a goal early in his AHL career, and he's out there. Obviously, the size jumps off the screen if you're watching on TV, as most of us usually are. And yeah, the guy was out there and playing with a lot of physicality. 3 hits per game, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it kind of is. And it especially is when you're averaging, what was it? Barely 8 minutes of ice time per night for Adam Edstrom. So that was impressive. And for a very short time last season, they had a very intriguing 4th line. It was Barclay Goodrow. Now he's gone, obviously, but it was Barclay Goodrow centering Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. So you have these 2 skyscrapers on either side of Barclay Goodrow and 2 guys that can play with some edge and play with some physicality. And we know how much Ranger fans love that. And look, everybody talks about Matt Rempe, and I totally get it. I'm a fan of Rempe too. He goes out there, he hits everything that moves. The guy's just an absolute wrecking ball. We know that he'll throw the gloves down and fight as well. But Adam Edstrom is no joke in any of those departments either. And he's not lagging very far behind Matt Rempe when it comes to size. Edstrom is listed at 6'7", 234 pounds. By comparison, Matt Rempe is the same height, 6'7", and only 7 pounds heavier at 241. So they're basically the exact same build. And I don't know if Adam Edstrom will make the team at a training camp. Obviously, look, this rookie camp, this can go a long way toward helping him accomplish that. At least makes it possible for him. But I'll be the first one to say, I think the idea of Edstrom and Rempe playing on the same line, it would be the 4th line, but the 2 of them playing on the same line, that could be a lot of fun. Obviously, a lot of physicality. And if you're an opposing player, you better keep your head up because, these guys will certainly lay in a big hit if they get the chance. I also think, you talk about this camp and you talk about, specifically the 2 games against the Flyer rookies. I feel like an environment for this is right up Adam Edstrom's alley. I think he could really succeed in an environment such as this. These games get nasty, and we're, as fans, Ranger fans and Flyer fans, we're kind of at the mercy of whether or not these games are made available. Like I said, I'm really keeping my fingers crossed. I don't think it's going to be on MSG. I'll just be honest. I don't see that happening. I could be wrong. I would love to be wrong about that. Gut feeling is it won't be on MSG, but can we at least get, a stream on YouTube that we can all watch live and just enjoy Ranger hockey and enjoy seeing these prospects in action? I hope we can, but we have seen in the past, because in the past, every once in a while, the Rangers will stream at least one of the 2 games. Maybe the Flyers will stream one of the 2 games. We have had some access to these games in the past, but these games have gotten chippy. They've gotten nasty. They've gotten ugly. There have been fights. 3 years ago in 2021, which might have been the first year that they did this, we had Matt Rempe getting into a really ugly fight with Wade Allison of the Flyers. And now you fast forward 3 years later, and they're both, becoming NHL regulars. I want to say Allison played in about 60 games last year. And Rempe, He didn't debut until kind of later in the season, was in and out of the lineup a little bit, but you guys see, how much of a rock star he's become. So again, high intensity, physical games, guys trying to make an impression, to turn heads, to get noticed a little bit. I think that favors a player such as Adam Edstrom, who goes out there and does play with so much physicality. As far as Edstrom making the team this upcoming season, I mean, again, we just mentioned this, but the best thing he can do is go out there and play well throughout this rookie camp, and specifically the 2 games against the Flyers. As far as whether he makes a team, I don't see it. I think guys like there's really only 4 guys that he could maybe jump in the pecking order, I would say. I would say they're Vesey, Carrick, Rempe, and Brodzinski. But I think the first 3 names I just said there, that's probably your opening night 4th line. And Brodzinski, I think they kind of like him as the 13th forward and somebody that can sub into the lineup on an as-needed basis. So my prediction is that Adam Edstrom does not make the Rangers team. That's another thing, too. They can send Edstrom to the minors without having to worry about him passing through waivers. Same cannot be said for Vesey or Carrick or Brodzinski. So for all those reasons, I don't think he'll make it. But they give players chances, and they might give Adam Edstrom a chance. And if he goes out there and shows out in these rookie games specifically and carries it over into the traditional Ranger camp and into the preseason as well, I mean, why not? They've shown before, have the Rangers, they have no qualms about giving young players an opportunity if they feel like they're ready for it. So yeah, definitely keeping an eye on Adam Edstrom. Another guy from actually the same draft class as Edstrom, although it hasn't really gone as well for him as it has thus far for Edstrom, that would be 23-year-old defenseman Matthew Robertson. Second round pick by the Rangers in 2019. He went number 49 overall, 6'4" and 201 pounds. So obviously a lot of size there. He is yet to make his NHL debut. Now he is only 23 years old. I'm not going to make it sound like, oh man, this guy's like 28 years old and hasn't debuted in the NHL yet. It might never happen. He's still got some time. But the thing that really kind of stands out about Robertson, and not in a good way, is the considerable lack of buzz that now surrounds him, because it wasn't that long ago that Robertson was one of the more highly regarded Ranger prospects. I mean, he was like in the top 5, I would say, and there might have even been a time where he was considered the Ranger top defenseman. And now, it's not even like the craziest thing to me, you don't hear anything about him. You don't even hear that he's struggling anymore. You don't even hear that maybe he's not in the Ranger plans. You don't hear anything about Matthew Robertson. I'm talking about from every source, this podcast, any other podcast, Ranger beat writers, Ranger fans, nobody ever talks about Matthew Robertson anymore. So for you Hartford Wolfpack fans that go to these games, I need you guys to confirm this season that he is actually there. He is still a member of this team. But in all seriousness, yeah, I mean, the clock's ticking for Robertson a little bit. And I feel like this camp, there is not a player, I can't speak for the Flyers because I don't know their farm system in and out the way I know the Rangers, their prospects. But among the Ranger rookies that are going to attend this, I don't think there's anybody that needs to have a better rookie camp than Matthew Robertson, because other guys, they're kind of on their way. Brian Othmann's getting there. Brett Berard's probably getting there. And then there's other guys that are just getting started, right? They're 18, 19 years old, and they've got a little bit of time on their side. But Robertson, again, not ancient. He's 23 years old, but you'd like him to be a little bit further along. And it's just crazy to me over these past couple of years. Anytime, a Ranger defenseman gets injured, or this happens, or that happens, or somebody's getting called up, Matthew Robertson isn't even discussed as an option, not even among us fans who are always, big fans of these prospects, and we want to see what these guys can do. So I just think Robertson more so than anybody else. He needs to turn some heads in this camp. Again, specifically the 2 games against the Flyers, but he needs to go out there and play well. If he wants to, be in the conversation to make his Ranger debut some point this season, which could happen, by the way. I'm sitting here and obviously I'm talking about how his buzz is down and his stock is down a little bit. Look, all it takes is strong training camps, this one and the traditional one, and good play in the AHL, and maybe he becomes an option at one time or another and gets his opportunity this year. But again, it's just crazy to me how little you hear about Matthew Robertson, good or bad, anymore. He's just kind of there, So Matthew Robertson, somebody that I'm going to keep an eye on, and somebody that I think more so than anybody on this Ranger rookie camp roster here really needs to go out there and play well and distinguish himself and kind of reestablish his place in the pecking order, so to speak. This guy can eventually be a call-up, or, maybe even as trade bait. I mean, not that that's his idea, but if he plays well, then maybe at one time or another, the Rangers can look to flip him if they need somebody at the trade deadline, but we shall see. But yeah, Matthew Robertson definitely needs a big camp. So going to keep everything rolling in just a second. We've got 3 more Ranger rookies to look at here. A couple other things, odds and ends to close out today's episode as well. And we'll get to all that fun stuff in just a second. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers, where we get to our third prospect to watch at this Ranger rookie camp. And again, not ranked in any specific order. We're kind of just jumping from one to the next. But it's going to be Bryce McConnell-Barker, a 20-year-old center, 6'2", 194 pounds. He was a third-round pick by the Rangers in 2022 at number 97 overall. He made his AHL, his debut in the AHL this past season in the playoffs. Just 4 playoff games, no points, and was also a -1. But this came after McConnell-Barker wrapped up his season with the Sioux Greyhounds of the OHL. He spent 3 seasons with the Greyhounds, including one as the captain, 177 points in 188 games, so flirting with point per game territory there in the OHL. This past season, 22 goals and 29 assists. So 51 points in 52 games to go along with a -2. And then in the playoffs, 11 playoff games, also had 5 goals and 10 assists. So a really strong playoff showing for McConnell-Barker as well. One of the reasons that McConnell-Barker intrigues me right off the bat here is the Rangers don't really have a ton of like top line can't miss center prospects. They've got some guys at the wing that they like quite a bit. But when it comes to center, I don't know, it's a little bit thinner there than certainly it is at wing. So you've got somebody here who was a third rounder and a couple of years ago, and you could make the argument that he might be the top prospect at that position that the Rangers currently have. But by all accounts, this is somebody that just is a very well-rounded player. I gave you his offensive numbers. We know he can score and contribute in that way. Sounds like he's somebody that also plays in all 3 zones, has a reputation of being a good defensive forward as well, tends to have good positioning out there. You know, one of those players that seems to have a high hockey IQ. I feel like with McConnell-Barker, and for all intents and purposes, this will be his first season in the AHL. I know he got, to the Wolfpack for 4 playoff games last year. And I suppose that's better than nothing. He at least got a taste of what AHL hockey is going to be like. But this is his first real season as a member of the Wolfpack. I don't think we'll see him with the Rangers this year. When you consider the Ranger depth chart at center, and when you consider the fact that he is just 20 years old. Now, one thing I could see happening, and again, I think the odds are probably even against this, but I would not rule out the possibility of the annual cup of coffee that the Rangers give out to one of their prospects. We saw it last year with Brian Othmann. He played in 3 games. I think he'll certainly play in more games than that this year with the Rangers. We saw it the year before that with Will Cooley. Will Cooley was up for 4 games, and obviously this past year made the team out of camp and played in just about every game. I think he was out there for like 80 or 81 games, whatever it was, and just a solid, steady contributing player to this Ranger team. I think he's going to have a big season this year as well, as a quick aside there. But yeah, I mean, I think McConnell-Barker, maybe you could see something like that. Now, he is very young, but again, we talked about this earlier in the episode. Rangers do tend to allow their young prospects, if they play well enough, if they show well enough, to, at least make their debut with the Rangers. And I could see that maybe happening. Maybe we see Bryce McConnell-Barker get caught up for 3 games, 4 games this upcoming season. Maybe there's an injury. Maybe they're playing some teams that aren't necessarily that good. We saw that with Othmann last year. I don't think that was an accident when Brian Othmann debuted in the Rangers game against the Blackhawks, because the Blackhawks were, awful last year. So, and not coincidentally, Othmann was up for 3 games. That game against the Blackhawks was far and away, I think, the best game that he played. But yeah, you could see something like that, with McConnell-Barker. But if not, I'm sure he'll do his thing in the Hartford Wolfpack. He's somebody that may be watching throughout this camp. He's somebody that I'm going to be watching certainly throughout, the entire season with the Wolfpack, assuming that he does begin with Hartford. But regardless, I feel like Bryce McConnell-Barker, this is a name that you don't hear get tossed around that much. I feel like he should be a little bit higher on, Ranger prospect rankings, or just, among fans, a little bit bigger of a name as far as prospects are concerned, because by all accounts, really strong all-around game. And as we know, he can contribute offensively as well. And he benefits from the fact that they don't have a ton of like top of the line center prospects. I'm not talking about like guys that can play center. Like I think Adam Sikora can play center from time to time, but he's mostly a wing. There's guys even like Adam Edstrom. He can play center, but he's mostly a wing. Matt Rempe can play center, but he's mostly a wing. Bryce McConnell-Barker, though, is like a bona fide center and one that can score at that. So at one time or another, maybe he gets a chance. We shall see. Somebody else I want to turn our attention to. This is a player that is even more under the radar than Bryce McConnell-Barker, but it's somebody that's kind of caught my eye a little bit recently. And I think I talked about him a couple weeks back, a little bit. I don't even remember what the context was, but I definitely remember talking about this player. That's going to be 20-year-old center Dylan Roobroeck. Roobroeck is 6'7", 205 pounds. Roobroeck really got my attention for a couple of reasons. For starters, you start with the size, right? Because obviously he's a giant out there, 6'7", 205 pounds. But last season with the Oshawa Generals of the OHL, Roobroeck played 68 games, had 26 goals, 46 assists. So 72 points in 68 games. He was also a plus 23. So all this stuff, this is very impressive right off the bat to go along with his tremendous size. But here's the real kicker, and something that I think Ranger fans will appreciate. 101 penalty minutes in the 68 games. Now, on one hand, I'm hoping he's not taking any unnecessary penalties, but very clearly this is somebody that's very willing to go out there and mix it up and play a very, very physical brand of hockey, and somebody that's not going to back down from anybody. I think those numbers make that pretty obvious. The other thing that we got to mention here is what he did in the playoffs last year for Oshawa. 21 games in the playoffs, 11 goals, 15 assists. So this kid had 26 points in 21 games throughout the OHL playoffs. Another 28 penalty minutes in the playoffs as well. And he was a +2 during that time. And his effort, along with, I'm sure, other players on that team, but his effort helped Oshawa make it to the OHL finals. They were actually swept in the finals by London 4-0. But obviously a very strong run, and very clearly Dylan Roobroeck, one of the guys leading the way during said run. And, again, we have some Ranger fans, and count me among you. People always want this team to get bigger, more physical, tougher, nastier, all that good stuff. So I want everybody to, if you're in that camp specifically, I want you to picture this. There could in the future be a Ranger fourth line of Dylan Roobroeck centering Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. You've got Roobroeck, who's 6'7", 205 pounds. You've got Edstrom, 6'7", 234 pounds. And you've got Matt Rempe, 6'7", 241 pounds. Now, do I think that'll happen this year? No, I don't think they'll call up Dylan Roobroeck, but never say never. He's also another center, and I don't know. I mean, it's possible they give him a chance. It's possible they give him, the treatment that Othmann and Cooley got the year before, and the one that I proposed not too long ago for Bryce McConnell-Barker. You never know what can happen, but at one time or another, possibly as soon as not 2024, 2025, but 2025, 2026, the next season, sooner or later, I think we're going to see that line. We're going to have Dylan Roobroeck in between Adam Edstrom and Matt Rempe. And for everybody that wants more physicality and more size, I think you're going to love that. So we got one more Ranger rookie to talk about here, one more player to watch in this rookie camp. That's going to be 22-year-old left winger Brett Berard. This should come as no surprise to the everydayers because, as you guys know, very, very big fan of Brett Berard. I think he's one of those players that, not so much anymore. For a while he was flying under the radar, but I think now people that follow this team closely and people that, are on top of the Ranger prospects and know what they're all about, you by now are starting to know a little bit about Brett Berard. Now, he was a former 5th-round pick, which that in and of itself explains why he was under the radar for a while, because you get taken in the 5th round. There's not a lot of buzz and hoopla that comes with it. But 5th-round pick by the Rangers in 2020, number 134 overall, 5'9", 174 pounds. Now, I can already hear a lot of you out there groaning, oh, it's another small guy, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it is. But by all accounts, this is a very tenacious player, willing to stick his nose in there, willing to battle, fight for the puck like his life is on the line. By all accounts, somebody who plays a lot bigger than that frame would suggest. And this is very impressive, what he did last season with the Hartford Wolfpack. Played with the Wolfpack last year, 71 games, 25 goals, 23 assists, 48 points. He was also a -23. And then he had a goal and 5 assists in 10 playoff games to go along with a -2. But he led the Hartford Wolfpack in his first season with the Wolfpack in goals scored. 25 goals, your first season in the AHL, and 25 goals. That's no joke whatsoever. So very clearly, this kid knows how to snipe. Now, technically, he did play 3 games with the Wolfpack the season prior. That was after he finished up at Providence College. But, I mean, it's 3 games. So for all intents and purposes, last year was his rookie season and his first taste of AHL hockey with the Hartford Wolfpack. And all he did, once again, was lead the pack with 25 goals. He was also 3rd in points for the Hartford Wolfpack. And I just think, to step into what is essentially your first season of bona fide professional hockey and lead your team in goals, tremendously impressive. And I mentioned a second ago, 3rd in points. He trailed only Alex Belzile and Brian Othmann in that department. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a kid that is really on his way. He's one of those players. It feels like you put him in any situation, on any stage, at any level, and he excels. He's excelled everywhere he's gone. You know, the college level, certainly throughout juniors, the World Juniors, you know, specifically, he was outstanding there. He was a point per game at Providence College, 18 goals and 20 assists in 36 games during his second season there. Played very well for Team USA in the World Juniors when he helped them win a gold medal. He had 1 goal and 4 assists in the 7 games there. And if I'm remembering this correctly, and I'm not 100% on this, but I think that season specifically, he was on Team USA's third line. So it's not like he's getting, 25 minutes of ice per night. You know, it wasn't anything like that. But him and his line mates on that third line, I think Bobby Brink was there too. He was one of the other ones. But they lit it up. I mean, they did a great job, and they were big time difference makers in helping Team USA win the gold medal. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do. You got to think, somebody in his position, I mean, they probably don't follow like prospect rankings the way that we all do, but you got to figure, this is the case of like a shark that smells blood. He's right there. He's close. He's knocking on the door. And there's a very, very good chance that Brett Berard could make his NHL debut this upcoming season. And that being the case, he's going to be out there and just going full bore. I mean, he would do that anyway, by all accounts, but he's going to be going full bore throughout this entire camp, this rookie camp here, and certainly the 2 games against the Philadelphia Flyers. I think in one way or another, I hope we can watch these games, but if we do get to watch these games one way or another, I do think that Brett Berard is going to jump off the screen in those 2 games against the Flyers. But figure we pretty much call it there for today. A couple of quick items to run through at the end here, and we'll talk about all these things in greater detail in the future, in a future episode of Locked On Rangers. Mark Stahl has announced his retirement at the age of 37, and he takes a position with the Rangers as a player development assistant. So we'll talk more about Stahl and his career and everything he did with the Rangers and his role now with the organization. We'll do that in a future episode in the not too distant future. The Rangers have also signed 29-year-old left winger Adam Ernie to a PTO. 379 career NHL games, 41 goals, 50 assists in those games. Has played for Tampa, Detroit, and Edmonton. And as we will do with Mark Stahl, we will talk more, a little bit more about Adam Ernie in a future episode, what we know about him and what he brings to the table for the New York Rangers. One last thing before we call it. Fantasy hockey reminder. I'm leaning toward putting the draft on Sunday, September 29th, the last Sunday before the NHL season begins. We'd put it for around like 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere in there. If you played last year, it's your last chance to get in touch because this Friday is your deadline. This Friday, we're going to open up the doors to people that did not play last year, have been waiting patiently in line, and allowing them to take the spots. But that will do it for today, guys. Once again, if you'd like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, at @LO_NY_Rangers. Once again, that's at @LO_NY_Rangers. And definitely subscribe to the Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.